Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guys and gals, creatures of all ages, whatever else you want to call yourselves, I'm fine with it. Welcome back to the Civilian Armory, and welcome to rifle building number 6. We're going to get down to the very end of small parts installation if we don't run too long in this video. We've really only got 2 things left to install, but those things left to install, if you're running just a standard style lower receiver, then it requires a punch and a hammer, and sometimes that makes people uncomfortable, but we're going to do it anyhow. So I'm going to set that aside. Actually, stop. Let's talk about what we need. Talk about what we're installing. Sorry. We're installing our trigger guard. Okay. It's got to have a roll pin, and then whatever it uses for a front pin, this Magpul trigger guard uses a small set screw. So because that uses a small set screw, we need small Allen key set. And like I mentioned in rifle building number 2, this is the little Allen key set that sometimes they won't be long enough to reach all the way up the pistol grip to install that screw up there, but they're going to be plenty long for what we're doing today. So because this trigger guard uses a set screw, we need a 1/16 inch, yes, 1/16 inch Allen key is what we're going to use to install that trigger guard. And then we're also going to install our bolt catch, bolt release, whichever you prefer to call it, along with its plunger and the spring. And the only tool necessary for that is a brass punch and a hammer. So we're down to the nitty-gritty here, kids. We've got everything else installed. We've got the fire control group installed. We've got the safety selector and all its associated parts installed. Our takedown pins and their associated hardware is installed. Our complete buffer assembly is installed with its associated hardware. The pistol grip's on. The stock is on. This thing is starting to look like a gun. And so now we're going to do the 2 things that require beating on your gun. And if you're cringy about this kind of stuff, then maybe, I don't know, building AR-15s isn't for everybody, and I don't shame anybody for not being huge about beating on stuff with a hammer. Disclaimer, I've scratched a bunch of my guns, but my guns are going to get scratched in training anyhow. I ended up with 82 hours of professional instruction last year, and I'm well on my way, being that it is June 3rd, I'm well on my way to having 100 hours of professional firearms instruction this year, and that does not count my practice at home, and that also will not count the instructor course that I'm signed up to take. So my guns get scratched up and beat up anyhow. You've seen some of my other videos. You've seen my multicolored rifle. It's kind of rough looking, and that's all right. So scratching a gun doesn't bother me a bit. If I were assembling a gun for somebody else, I would probably take additional precautions, but I'm not. This is not a gun I plan to train with, but it does belong to me. It is not a gift. I'm not assembling this for somebody else. This is a closet rifle. It's going to get built. It's going to get tested. It's going to get stuck in a closet, so that someday when the end times come, I have something I can hand a neighbor. And that's the whole philosophy here. So let's talk about what we're doing here. We have our bolt catch spring and our bolt catch plunger. The spring goes right on the small end of the plunger there. There's a lip that holds it, and those go in that hole right there. Right, so we're going to drop those in just like that. The plunger sticks up a little bit, just a little bit proud, no problem there. This can be a little tricky sometimes, but We're going to do our best to install this roll pin that has gotten away from me here, right there. And actually, I changed my mind. We're going to start our roll pin first. So I'm going to flip this over, let my spring and plunger fall back out, slide all that stuff kind of to the side here. We're going to start our roll pin first. We'll get the hairy part kind of started. This is a little tough to do. I have seen people pinch these roll pins a little bit to help one end of it start. I've seen people do this, I've seen people do that. The best way I've found is to kind of hold it all in line, so where that roll pin goes is right there on that wing where your bolt catch groove is. So I hold it all in line like this, and I'm just warning you now, the camera's probably going to shake. I'm on like a plastic lifetime table, but this should go to further illustrate that you can literally build an AR-15 about anywhere. So it started. Okay, we've got it started. See that roll pin sticking out right there? I'm going to run it a little further, and I did scratch that gun just a touch. If you want something you can do, you can just take one of your rags that you've been cleaning guns with anyhow and lay it over that area right there to help keep you from scratching anything. It's not a terrible idea. I'm going to run that a little further, look, and I'm looking in the groove to see if I can see where the end of the pin is. A little further. That's about where I want to be. Okay? So we'll go back to what I lied to you and told you was step one. We'll take our bolt catch spring and our bolt catch plunger, stick them together like that, stick them back in the hole where they go there. Hopefully you can see it with the lighting. And we're going to try to line everything up again. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but I have faith that with some practice. See, that's just starting into that bolt catch. So I want to make sure we're getting it through the hole. You got to kind of do it by feel. Make sure that our bolt catch is still rotating and not being pinched. It's going. That roll pin's kind of long-winded. If you hear a change in the tone, you want to stop and kind of look. We got just another little smidge to go on this one. We're just a touch proud, so I'm going to line it all up one more time and give it one last good pop. And you can see that our pin went all the way in. Our bolt catch moves back and forth. So, one second. Had to step to the other side of the room there to grab us a mag. Now we're going to do some testing before we move on. With an empty magazine. This is a Lancer L5 AWM mag, empty magazine. We're going to test two functions here before we go any further. We're going to take our mag, we're going to insert it, and then we're going to pull back, and we know that our mag catch, our mag release is working. Also, a thing to watch from this angle, as we insert it, our bolt catch should come up. See how that moves up? Because the bolt catch is being pushed up because the magazine is empty. So right there where that catches that follower, we've just tested two things. We've tested the function of our mag catch, as well as our bolt catch, as well as the function of our mag catch and mag release. So that works. We can take our empty mag and we can set it aside. Now we're at the 10-minute mark here. I guess I could split this into a second video, but I feel like you guys are rocking and rolling and you want to get your rifles put together, right? So we'll go on ahead and go on. Take my little screw back out here. I just had kind of started it. So what we just did, hammering that roll pin in, you have the potential to scratch your lower receiver. What we're about to do now, you have the potential to outright break your gun and basically ruin your lower receiver if you're not careful. So pay attention to what I'm gonna talk about here, and I'm gonna give you a pro tip on how to avoid this. Okay? All trigger guards will have a through hole, a hole that goes all the way through, and they will have a blind hole. That hole does not go all the way through. And there is no hole on this side, just the marking. Okay? The one with the blind hole and the marking that does not go all the way through goes to the front. Okay? And we want to go ahead and put this trigger guard in there because I've seen guys attempt to start their pin on these little tabs here where the roll pin goes through to hold the rear, and they break those tabs off. And let me tell you, kids, there's no way to fix that. You've ruined your lower receiver, so you've either got to figure a new way to attach something, or you can throw it in the trash. Those are kind of your two options. So we're going to do the front first, okay? We're going to take our little screw here. This is a Magpul style thing. I haven't seen too many other trigger guards that are this way. Most of them have a little, kind of a little springy thing that holds them, but this is the kit we're assembling, so this is the kit we're going to assemble. And we're going to start our little set screw down in there, and it screws through the hole, and into the polymer of the trigger guard, okay? And that threads on that little set screw start biting that polymer, and that's what holds it in the front, okay? Let me just run that down until it's about flush, and that's good. Here's where things get a little interesting. You want to make sure that your trigger guard is supporting that tab, okay? Don't start beating on it like that. You'll bust that tab off, I'm telling you. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. So make sure your trigger guard is pushed in before, that way that tab can't be broken off as easily, okay? And I hold that pin just like that. I'm going to take my hammer and start it, okay? And I'm on a table, guys. I'm not on like a real solid surface here, so it's just gonna kind of bounce around as I whack this thing. As you start getting close, if you're particular and don't want to scratch your gun, you can do one of two things. You can use a brass punch, and sometimes that'll leave brass markings on the black, or on your Cerakote, whatever you got. You can take a rag and lay over it and just feel and find where that pin is. And this isn't protecting the pin, it's protecting the rest of the stuff around the pin so that when we whack it, we don't actually hit stuff with the head of the hammer if we glance off or something. Okay? So we're just going to keep kind of checking that, give it another whack, check it, give it a whack, and we're just pretty stinking close. She's just a touch proud on this one side. So what we're going to do now, to run it a little further, because it's got some room to go on the other side, we're going to take a punch. This is a 1/8 by 4.25 inch punch. We're going to take a 1/8 inch punch, get it directly on that pin, and drive that pin kind of the rest of the way down until you're happy with how it sits. I'm happy with that. It's just flush. But we do have a little room on this side, so I'm going to go like 1-2 more little whacks and we're going to call that good. Get my punch lined up just right, and it's got to be a 1/8 punch. Perfect. Perfect. And we didn't break the ears off either side. Beautiful. That is the complete installation of all the small parts related to a lower receiver, as far as just generic stock parts go. Now we can test fit our upper, and I'll have to build another rifle and go over how the upper is assembled. This PSA kit came with an assembled upper, so I don't get to show you how to assemble it, but we can take our upper, and you've got the block here where your hole is. You got one in the rear. Pop both of your detent pin, your takedown pins out. Set that in there just like that. And you sometimes got to kind of wiggle them and giggle them and you know, all that stuff. And you'll get that front takedown pin to come in, and then you get your rear takedown pin to come in, and we can function test it. This has already got a bolt carrier group and a charging handle and everything all in it. Like I say, the upper was assembled when I got the kit in, but we can test it. We can go ahead and grab our charging handle, pull it to the rear, let it slam forward. Everything seems to be lining up all right. Everything's beautiful. Thanks for watching, guys.